Let's install the Billet GT35 Turbo from Maxpeedingrods. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, I'm Matt. Let's continue working on the 1.8 Turbo Cruze and get it ready for the dyno to put down some numbers and to finalize our tune. However, we need to make sure everything that is, well, the final setup is together before we take it. Otherwise, it'll throw the tune completely off. Let me show you what changes we're gonna make. So we've got a 3.5 inch intake pipe, which we'll be swapping out for this thing. It's kind of a cool idea. I'm going to do a very similar setup, except we're just increasing the size of it. We can now clear that sensor, so we'll get that taken care of. And who knows, if I have enough time, I'll build a kind of a shroud for this thing to isolate it from the hot air. Since everything's running quite nice, I could probably just go ahead and toss my fender liner back in and see if there's room for the air filter. But again, as I've mentioned in the past, we do have times where it floods here in Houston, and I don't want to destroy the engine because of water being sucked up, and it would be a pretty tight fit in there anyways. We still need to toss on our tires. I can smell those things from over here. Can't wait to get those on, but we still have a good amount of tread on these, so who knows, maybe I'll just burn these things off. Debating on that because it's pretty hard on the car. And then we have an AEM boost controller. We got our instructions, all of our wiring. We have some rubber tube. However, this is what actually came with the kit, but I don't want to do the press-on barb stuff. These fittings in here with the Mac valve, that's just kind of AEM rebranded. They just put a sticker on there. But all this is a Mac valve solenoid. And I got some of these push-to-connect fittings. Got quite a bit of them. I've got some leftover air hose from having to maintain this beast over here, which partially runs off of air. We still have our 3-inch straight through Flowmaster exhaust that we're going to install. I really doubt this is going to make any real noticeable difference to the tune and power numbers it's going to put down. It will just really, what I'm looking for is to kind of get rid of some of that rasp, maybe tone it down just a little bit on decibels. I've always loved Flowmaster's sound and everything that they do, so this is my weapon of choice here. And I'm debating whether or not I am going to use this breakout air intake temperature sensor and stab it somewhere in the tubing right here, so we're getting the temps post intercooler as well as before the throttle body, the intake, and all that jazz. And last but not least, we will be installing our Billet GT35 Turbski. So let's take the GT35 that is currently on the car, which has been working really well, but I want to put this Billet Turbo on the car. And we'll start tuning for it and hit the dyno. Let's go. Let's get this thing out of the way. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Not a single drop. I think this is probably one of the first times in a bit where it's not leaking anything. So we got our drain, our turbo drain, disconnected. Let's go ahead and pull it out. And remember, kids, always pull out. This is a PSA announcement from your good old Uncle Matt. The turbo that I just pulled off is looking pretty nice. Don't have really any additional play than it came from the factory. We do have about maybe 750 miles on it. The engine is running really well. Not a whole lot of carbon buildup in here. So this turbo is great. We'll set her aside and we'll keep it for a future project. But let's install the billet wheel goodness. Give ourselves some room. All right, let's get rid of this junk. One of the first things I'm going to do is remove this barb fitting, and we'll use one of our push to connect fittings. I'll leave a link down in the description as to where you can get these. So let's remove that. We'll toss one of these on with this billet kind of drain tube that I did order. This O-ring is a little compressed, and I did notice that there was just a little bit of seepage going on here. Because that O-ring is a little compressed, what I'm going to do is use the composite gasket that came with the turbo. We'll see how it holds up. Looks like some pretty nice material. So we'll toss that on to our drain tube, and hopefully that should seal us up pretty dang well. Let's toss in our push to connect. Should seal her up well. Let's take a little bit of Loctite. Put a hole on these threads. Take our gasket, and we'll go ahead and we'll snug this thing up. All right, we got that all situated. Now we need to clock the turbo. I like this particular turbo here, so what we'll do is we'll loosen up these 6 bolts. Clocking a turbo is pretty easy. We're just going to loosen these up. They do have some paint markers on here, but we're just going to loosen it up. We'll turn it, snug one of these bolts up, pull it back off, and then we'll go back and we'll just hand tighten everything. I imagine it's probably about 5 foot-pounds. It's not a whole lot of pressure. And they're just got a 13 millimeter here. Just slightly loosen these. Get to the other side. Now our turbo can rotate. We'll toss it on the car real quick, orientate it, and we'll come back and we'll snug them back up. Yeah, let's stab her in. Okay, that's about where she is going to live. We'll just snug up a couple of these bolts, and we'll take her off and secure the rest of them down. There we go, let's toss her back in the car. We'll take our T3 gasket along with our 3-inch exhaust gasket, or the turbine side gasket, and we'll put it in the car. Let's go. Now we'll take a little bit of Permatex anti-seize, put it on the bolts, and we're just gonna take our gasket, slide her right into place. We'll just thread this thing right on in. We have our downpipe all bolted up. We have the turbo flange bolted up, use some anti-seize. Now we need to hook up the feed and the coolant line over there. But before we do that, we are going to use some fresh oil. We'll kind of prime it. We might toss a little bit of engine assembly lube in there too, just to kind of prime it up. We got our oil can with some fresh new engine oil, a little bit of 10W30, and we'll just pump some oil in there, and we'll spin the turbo a little bit just to kind of lube it up. There we go, that should get it. Now there's multiple ways to set this up, but we do have a banjo fitting and a hard line here. We're going to take some fresh crushed copper gasket thingamadoodles, seat this thing right on in there. This is always the fun part when it's a hard line. We'll snug that up just a little bit, and then we'll put these fittings on with some fresh copper, or are they brass? Whatever the case may be. We'll push this over a little bit, squeeze those in there, put our turbo blanket back on, and then we'll fire the car up with the intake on. See what the difference is. Well, this is why you start things up and test things out. The whole bag of kitty litter. We did have a little bit of a minor leak, not that big of a deal. tightened up our oil feed a little bit, had to kind of go over things. She is a lot more efficient because I did have to pull out about 4% fuel to get her going. Let's take her for a spin and log some things. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is the next day. I've done some tuning to get the air-fuel ratio and spark closer to where it should be. Now let's go take her for a rip and see if we can't tell any difference. That was just kind of real mild. We're gonna take her right down the street, kind of turn around, and we'll do a rip in a second. We'll get up the speed limit pretty quick. How about that? But let's do ourselves a little bit of a second gear rip here. Maybe even toss it in the third. All right. Second, got plenty of space ahead of us. Let's go ahead and mash it and see what she does. Holy shit. All right, we got her up there to speed limit. Call it speed limit. And we'll have to go back and look at the data and see what she's doing. I am getting a little bit of spark retard towards 8,000 RPM, but I do have the timing pretty conservative right now until we can get it on the dyno and figure out if we're just getting some false knock. So that way we can play it safe and increase the timing, see what the engine likes, and where eventually adding timing does absolutely nothing for us. 15 pounds of boost at 7,300 RPM. So there we have it, ladies and gentlefolk. One successful turbo install. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to give a thumbs up to this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And until next time, peace out. Would you peace out?